The question is, are you ready? And of course, are you ready for AI? And some people wonder, can you ever be ready for AI? We have an expert on the matter with us here today. Hello and welcome, Paul Slater.
Hi, nice to be with you today.
Thank you very much for taking the time. So you wrote the book, The AI Ready Human, which we do not only see in your background, we see it here. First, of course, I have to wonder, when people say, can humans ever be ready for AI? And then to put it into a book, what was your core motivation to write this book?
It actually came from working with, I would say, probably a couple of hundred people that I started to observe as part of the work that I was doing in learning development. And I started to observe some really interesting patterns. I saw some people that straight out of the gate, as soon as ChatGPT 3.5 came out, they were all over it. It was kind of their first opportunity as human beings to interact directly with something that they recognized as AI. Some of those people that were the most enthusiastic about it right off the bat went back to those same people 6 to 9 months later and saw a very different picture. Some of them were continuing to thrive, but some of them were really struggling. And it really started to occur to me that despite the fact that a lot of people were regarding this purely as a tool that you could master if you were just using, figured out how to engineer a prompt, it was actually much more complicated than that. And it was something that was disrupting the world of work itself, and changing how we need to work. And so then it really became a bit of an obsession for me. What are the right, or what are the most effective human behaviors to deal with this new world of work?
Excellent. So one of your chapters says, and I found this very interesting and also really fascinating, why organization matter less and more with AI. What do you mean with that? Because some people say, look, on the one side, I am afraid that my job is going to be gone by tomorrow. On the other side, why do we need all these supervisors and managers when basically AI can do all of that? So why are they still sitting here? What do you mean with the organizational part in your book?
Yeah, so really, kind of, it's actually a two meanings of the same thing, right? So one is the organization itself, right? And then there's the act of organizing of organization, and of course, in the English language, those two things are conflated. In terms of the act of organizing, right? The act of organizing for an individual, it is something where effectively, if you think about it, in order to succeed as individuals we used to have to be very, very organized. We had to organize all of our data. If you go back far enough, there were, entire job titles and entire parts
Hmm.
of companies which were filing rooms. And when you needed to get something, you had to file it in the right
Yeah.
place so that you could find it in the right place. Effectively, all of that is gone, right? But as an individual, we need a new type of organization in order to replace it. We need to organize our day. We need to organize our life in certain ways because work itself has become very unstructured and ambiguous. And then the other meaning of the word organization, as in the company and things like that, we are at a point now where we can structure organizations in a whole bunch of different ways and use AI to help us. But we still need to structure the organization in a way that works for the business that we're in, right? And so you can still get organization horribly wrong, even with the help of AI.
Mm, excellent. And that's the perfect transition, perfect segue to my next point. When people say we're really interested in AI, mostly because we see every one of our competitors does it. So we need to do something with AI, but we're just aware that we are not really sure how to keep it under control. You have a whole chapter on control in your book. And I just give you an example, which I told you before the interview as well, with one of my clients, one of their suppliers said they had AI in place and they made decisions based for staffing, where should salespeople go, where should marketing go, and they did this based on AI data, only to find out by pure coincidence when someone manually checked that there were wild hallucinations amongst the data. So on the one hand, people say AI, of course, is fascinating. We like to have it. Anyone's doing it. However, when I have to background check everything an AI does, I can actually do the work in the first place. Or where am I wrong here? How can I keep this under control?
Yeah. I it's funny, when I'm often asked what is the most significant issue associated with AI and when it comes to the interface between humans and I think it is that issue of control. And what's really intriguing here is that AI has the promise to allow us to be able to take control of our organizations, of our teams, of ourselves in ways that we were unable to before because we don't have to sweat the small stuff. But on the other hand, it can be the cause of us potentially losing control. And you hit on something which I think is extremely important, which is if you start when you're working with AI, if you start from the point of complete trust, if you just assume that AI is going to be giving you the right information, if you just assume that the way that AI does things is going to be largely as good or better than the human beings inside your organization, and you relax your controls because of that, your human oversight, for example, because of that, you can end up in a world of hurt. You can end up in
Mhm.
very not just failed AI deployments, but potentially putting your business at risk because of it. And
Mm.
particularly in the area of governance, I think this is where organizations are really starting to try to figure this out, right? It's not I've spent 50 million on an AI deployment and it failed. It's I've spent 50 million on an AI deployment and it's caused an issue that has cost my
Yeah,
business 100 million or
yeah.
200 million. So when you think we have mechanisms inside organizations, governance, safety mechanisms inside organizations, I would really focus on what is the role of the humans inside those organizations. And then when you come down to a team level, it's also about how you structure your team. So we want to start building teams that are highly multidisciplinary so that as you're bringing AI into the picture, bringing AI into your team, you've got the right set of human skills inside the team to be able to make sure that you're using AI safely and effectively. And you're creating the right combination of the human skills and the AI capabilities in order to be able to succeed as a business.
Yeah, excellent. And when now people say, okay, governance, very important word here, we put the compliance department in charge. And I give an example of what I just saw with one of the companies where one of my friends work. They said, okay, we have these amazing tools. Compliance showed up and they ended up with, okay, to make everything safe, you now have Copilot chat with no libraries, no share function, and it doesn't have access to any internal data. So what people immediately did, taking their private chat GPT accounts, using that at work. So they just circumvented basically the whole process. So how do you actually want to give people X on the one hand without having the fear that they're going to wildly breach governance or even data protection rules, which in some countries, for example in Europe, can cost you up to 5% or 4% of your revenue annually when you get caught with it. So how to keep the
Yeah.
right balance? Because I know that you have balance also in your book.
Yeah, well, we've seen this story before, I would say, multiple times. The one that really sticks out for me was when the internet first became a thing, and inside many organizations, people did not have the internet on their desktop. There might be like one or two computers inside the
Yeah,
company that had it. So what did everybody do? Well, there were still phone jacks in floors in those days, so people would just basically get a modem off of the street, plug a modem in, plug it into their computer, and they had access to the internet, circumventing a firewall that was
yeah.
inside the organization designed to protect the organization. We've seen that story before. Anytime you are over restrictive in terms of the controls you put in, people inside your organization will create what for them is a justifiable exception,
Hmm.
but in reality for the organization is an undeniable risk.
Yeah.
I would I think there is something fundamental at work here that we really have to consider. The responsibility associated with keeping an organization safe and effective, and getting the most benefit out of AI can be, you can make the decisions, you can make the policy decisions at the top of the organization, but that responsibility for a safe and effective use of AI is basically everybody inside the organization. And so what that means is that there is a significant job of education that needs to happen here. Because right now, what you have is people all the way through organizations, I would say even in some cases, including some IT departments, that really don't have a full and deep understanding of what the technology is. And they
Mm.
don't have a deep fundamental understanding of what it means to interact with technology, which is fundamentally probabilistic in nature,
Yeah.
versus versus the technology that we have been using for the previous, for the previous 20, 30 years. They don't understand that that is fundamentally different. And so, but then all the way through to every human that could potentially interact with AI needs a level of AI literacy that extends beyond I know how to type a prompt, right?
Mm.
It extends to a deep understanding of how to do so in a way that is safe and effective. Without that, what you end up with is limited information combined with fear and uncertainty and doubt
Mm.
that leads to irrational behaviors. There's an irrationality in terms of the way that people are behaving right now, and it stems from a lack of education and understanding of the technology as a whole.
Yeah, excellent. So you would say professional training is becoming more and more important, especially regarding AI.
Yeah, I would. And there is a challenge that, and I come from a background of learning and development, so I don't want
I
to
know.
throw
This is why
learning
I'm
and development
asking.
under the
This is why
bus.
I'm asking.
But
Yeah.
there is a challenge here in the sense that in my experience, what I've seen is that many learning and development organizations do not really understand the technology either. So I think it's basically infrastructure, policy, culture of which learning development understands. I'm seeing an emergence of AI enablement functions that are separate from L&D but work very closely with L&D. And I think that's probably better. And inside in AI enablement, you need a deep understanding, yes, of the technology, but also of organizational change management, human behavior, learning development, those types of skills as well.
Yeah, excellent. And you also talk about motivation and resilience in your book. When you now say AI is coming, you of course will see that some people say, I am a bit nervous about this. And not only nervous because some people might think they might lose their job, because the atmosphere in the organization might become a bit tense. Because I give you an
Yeah,
example. In one organization, it went through press. People said no one is going to lose their job. However, there were quite a number of what people say usual admin jobs. And after people retired, they realized they're not coming back. So someone
yeah,
retires, and instead of what we had back in the day, someone gets hired, the job is simply gone. And that, of course,
yeah.
gets closer and closer each day. How do you keep the organization running when not everyone in your organization is sitting there with a bilingual Stanford MBA, where you say, I'm going to find a job anywhere on the planet anyway? So how do you keep the organization running when fear suddenly gets closer and closer to these people?
Yeah, and I think the probably the key answer to that question is that it's extremely important to have rational discussions based with transparency and clarity about what about the direction the organization is going, the role of AI, and the role of human beings within it. And that's not happening inside a lot of organizations. A lot of organizations are not really talking about it effectively. There
Unfortunately,
is a
true.
non-zero risk that the as this technology evolves, and particularly as you start to see more of the convergence between AI, automation, which we're already seeing with the emergence of agents, and also as we see more convergence with robotics, new computer trends like quantum and so on, there is a non-zero risk that significant unemployment will occur, right? We can't deny that. That's
Yeah.
we don't know, but we don't know that it's not we don't know that it's not going to be the case. And just making tired arguments like, well, it hasn't happened previously. Every time we've had major technology advances, then we've had, good employment numbers previously, therefore it must happen again. We don't know. It's only been a couple of hundred years since the Industrial Revolution.
Mm.
So the so because we don't know that, right? I think we have to be open and honest about that. But what we do have to do is we have to help people understand that if you don't just embrace the technology as in you play with it, but really start to think seriously about the job that you're going to have in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, and really focus on honing traits like resilience and specifically adaptability, right? And being the most adaptable human that you can be, that there are real opportunities for you. So we have to create an environment where everybody is learning all the time, everybody is adapting all the time, and everybody is kind of leaning into the world of potential future uncertainty, but just knowing that because they are really adaptable humans, they're going to find a spot that works for them.
Excellent. And I have two more questions to wrap this interview up. Because, of course, when I prepared for this interview, I always look into certain clusters of questions appearing more and more. And there is One
Sure.
question which from board level was asked by almost 80% of all people from board level participating in the survey. And they
Wow.
are asking if you advise on board level and you can only pick one, just one structural change regarding AI that you insist on in front of a board, what would it be?
Structural change.
Yeah.
I think I alluded to it a little bit before. I th- I think that there needs to be inside every organization above a certain size. I call them a future of work executive. They don't necessarily have to be in the C-suite, but it's
Hmm.
probably better if they are.
Yeah.
And I think of a future of work in that context as being a fairly all-encompassing function. So it
Mm.
encompasses HR, it encompasses corporate real estate, it encompasses forward-looking technology. But the idea here is that AI is a signal, in a sense. AI is a signal that the how, what, when, where, why of work is changing much more rapidly than it ever has before, and that you need the right people, the right facilities, and the right infrastructure and policy and culture to take advantage of that. So companies themselves need to be very change ready, leaning into change, and change becomes a continuous competency versus individual change initiatives. And so I think sort of a restructuring around the idea of technology change happening rapidly, probably under the auspices of a future of work executive. That to me feels like the direction that we need to build so that organizations are adaptable and change ready by design.
Brilliant. I think future of work executive is something which you probably should trademark by tomorrow because to me that sounds really, really good, especially with your background. Amazing. And of course, one final question I have to ask. When now people say, hey, I think Paul could really be helpful for our organization, either as a consultant, coach, mentor, or as a keynote speaker for our conference, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, I do all of those, so yes. So Paul at paulslater.ai is how to contact me directly, or you can go to paulslater.ai and learn more about me and the work I do, or just read the book. Any of those
Yeah.
any of those things will be you'll find ways to get in touch with me that way. And of course, I'm always available on LinkedIn.
Perfect. These are the perfect final words. The AI ready human, Paul Slater, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.